truthfully, you know, there are some businesses right now that the plan is, how do we lose the minimum amount of money, right? So when we're talking about how do you maximize profits on the bottom line, sometimes what I'm also talking about here is how do I minimize losses, right? So what I invite you to do is, as you're here tonight, to listen from a place of a couple of things. One is, how can this serve me, and what can I take away and learn from here that will help me in running my business every day? And two, that you look at, you know, my goal is always that when I do presentations with people that you walk away with something that you can use, right? That you leave here in action in some way, that you at least got one thing that you're going to go, you know what, I'm going to go do that out of this presentation. So what I invite you to do as we begin is to listen from a place of what is at least one thing that you can take away from here tonight that you can go do something with in your business. Let me ask if any of you recognize any of these symptoms in your business, right? Has anybody here, can you appreciate any of the pain that I know I see? I've been working with contractors for over 20 years. I was married to one before I started this business. Well, actually when I started it as well. So I understand this industry pretty well, and I understand the challenges that business owners and managers face in this industry. So number one, how many of us could relate to this? You're not making the profits that you want, right? Number two, cash flow is tight, and for some businesses, now you've actually maybe even had to experience had the challenge of, oh my gosh, payroll's coming next week and I don't have the cash to pay it, or I don't have all the cash flow I need to make sure that I stay on top of it with my vendors to be able to pay them in a timely manner. How many of you have experienced a greater amount of competition during these times? Yep. Right? Yeah. Yep. So, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out, okay, so how do I continue to be in business, make a profit, and I've got less volume, so and I've got more people vying for the same amount of work. Everybody wants it better, faster, cheaper. And oh, by the way, I was listening, I think it was you that was telling the story earlier, you know, it's like where it used to be, well, I just negotiated work, and now I'm having to competitively bid to get that same work. I just don't get as much of that just negotiated work. Can you appreciate this, that nobody cares about your business as much as you do? So there's like a little bit more at stake every day when you show up, that sometimes it feels lonely. You know the results aren't good, but you don't want to look at it.
The ostrich.
I wish.
Yeah, I know that, you know, I just know it's bad, so I don't want to look at it. And we have a hard time not like taking it personally. We have a hard time when we look at the results that we produce and we see that like the bottom line is diminishing or sales aren't where we want it to be, that we have a tendency to want to think about it like, we tend to take it personally. And let me ask you this, would it be useful for you tonight if we talked about some of the symptoms that cause this and maybe some things that you can do that will have this be different for you in your business? Would that be helpful? Okay, so there's only two ways to affect the bottom line. So I'm gonna refer to profits here in this conversation as the bottom line. There's only two things that you can do to affect your bottom line. You either have to increase revenue or you have to decrease costs. Those are the only two things that you can do. And there's only two ways that you can do either of those things. So one of the ways to be able to increase revenue is to increase volume. So we're all working on, one of the things when I look at a business, when I start working with them, is I'm always asking the question, which of these four areas is the place where there's an opportunity for them? So a lot of times people say to me right now, so let's talk about the increased volume one. How many people in here can relate to this statement? My marketing strategy was answering the telephone. Or my marketing strategy was responding to bids that came in. So increasing volume is one way that you can increase revenue. The other way that you can increase revenue is to increase your prices. Increase how much you charge, increase your markups. So how many people in here are thinking to themselves, well, that's not a very good strategy these days. How am I going to do that? So while I appreciate that this is not a time when we're in the middle of a declining marketplace to look at increasing prices, I've actually run across contractors when I've looked at their business and I go, you know, I know what the market will bear for what you do, and you don't charge enough. Now there might be something else going on here called You need to learn how to market your business better to create more opportunities to bid work, but your prices aren't necessarily the thing. The good news and the bad news, right? So we could look at this and we could all commiserate about, it's hard right now. But I also look at it is that I think it's a great opportunity to learn how to be more effective and more efficient in the operations of our business. I think there's a huge gift here to look at how do we actually do what we do. And we kind of we get into this routine about we do it the way we've always done it. But maybe stop and ask the question, is there a better, more effective, more efficient way to do what we do that could actually really make us a better, more well-run company? How can we reduce some of the fat? How can we look to be more innovative or creative? How can we look for ways to better utilize technology or tools to get it done less expensively? So I think that that's the opportunity that's here too, is it's forcing us to look at our businesses differently.